Cristiano Ronaldo was not born under the lights, but he learned to exist under the lights and then to dominate them. That weak boy from the poor streets of Madeira over time became one of the most talked about, most discussed, but perhaps most left alone figures in the history of football. Even at the peak of her career, she experienced the same thing at every award ceremony. Eyes would turn to him, expectations would grow, but often it would be another name that was called on the stage. Perhaps this was understandable in the early years. He was young. He had a long way to go. But then what? Even in the years when he was the goal scorer, when he won championships, when he broke records, something has always been left incomplete. And at some point, this lack turned into a habit: UEFA, FIFA, the Ballon d'Or. Every award ceremony was a test. It is a test where not only performance comes into play, but also perceptions, policies, invisible rules such as whose turn it is. The media overshadowed this balance with its admiration for Messi in the first place. This year Messi should get it. It was Messi's year, were the headlines. However, in the same year, Ronaldo was the player who scored the most goals in the Champions League. Or he had carried his team to the cup by backing up. But sometimes these remained only footnotes. Ronaldo, on the other hand, went to every ceremony with the same seriousness. In his razor-cut suit, holding his back straight, as if he knew the result in advance, but still with hope, and applauded when his name was not mentioned on stage. He smiled. He turned to the cameras, but there was something in his eyes. A quiet question. What more should I do? In an interview, he voiced this question out loud. Sometimes I feel, no matter what I do, I won't be enough in some people's eyes. This promise sat inside millions of fans, because perhaps one of the greatest in football, it was the first time he was speaking with such open resentment. For him, it was a task to score goals. Winning was a responsibility, but being appreciated, it had now turned into a chance. Especially in recent years, as we get older and decelerate from Europe, this disregard has become more pronounced. And one day, a much more shocking event happened. Ronaldo had had perhaps one of the best seasons of his life, but he wasn't even included in the Ballon d'Or nominations list. The world spoke about this situation, but the institutions were silent. Ronaldo, on the other hand, did not speak as usual, but his silence this time was a weight. Not to the cameras, but perhaps for the first time he was an introvert. At that moment, a journalist approached him and asked the following question. Do you feel that you have been forgotten now? Ronaldo stopped for a moment. He didn't answer. He just smiled and bowed his head. And in that moment, the whole world understood. This smile was not an acceptance, but a veil of disappointment. Because some people do everything but still get forgotten. But those who are forgotten are the ones who make history. He was in Paris on the night of the Ballon d'Or, the red carpet, the cameras, the Stargate. But Cristiano Ronaldo wasn't there that year. His name was not mentioned among the candidates, nor on the guest list. December. Once the most talked about name, now it has become the subject of only a few social media comments. Is Ronaldo not called anymore? As a joke, the guy finished the season with 38 goals. But this silence was the accumulation not only of that night, but of years. He had been the goal scorer in Italy. He had come back in England and become the best of his team again. He was breaking records in Saudi Arabia, but these achievements were no longer included in the award criteria, because now there was another discourse. This is Messi's year. There should be a place for young players now. The new generation should come on the scene. Ronaldo was watching these statements carefully. Each sentence was making an invisible line a little thicker. The awards were no longer given only to success, but to the story. And his story was treated as if it had come to its last page. One day, on a special broadcast, the announcer asked him, "Cristiano, do the awards still motivate you?" He thought for a few seconds. Then he said, choosing the words carefully, "No, not anymore, because sometimes awards are not about who you are, but where you are." This remark resonated. For many, Ronaldo would be considered arrogant. But this sentence was different. It was said in a low voice, but it carried a high meaning. Ronaldo's story was written not only with trophies, goals, but also with the ignored ones. The boy who had once put the prizes he had won in his shop window was now turning to that shop window and just looking at it. Another trophy, another award. None of them satisfied him anymore, because what he was really looking for was a fair look. And perhaps the most painful thing is, while he still felt on top, it was because the world had already retired him. But he did not give up the struggle. At every goal, at every victory, he quietly exclaimed, "I'm still here." And one day, maybe years later, people would look back and ask the following question: how could this man have been so decently ignored? Cristiano Ronaldo has quietly withdrawn from the football scene. What a great jubilee. What giant banners prepared in the stands. Nor did FIFA have a special ceremony for him. Only at the end of a match he left his jersey on the ground. He took one last look at the ball and walked to the locker room. An era ended there, without anyone noticing. And the world paid attention to the gap left by Ronaldo for the first time then. Statistics fell on the screens. The most national goals, the most goal scorers in the history of the Champions League, 5 Ballon d'Or, 4 Golden Shoes, 7 league titles. But there is one question left behind. How come this man has been ignored in recent years? The answer was on the face of football, which is intertwined with politics and perception. At that time, everyone was focused on glorifying someone. The headlines, "Messi should get it this year," are repeated every year. The media was pushing one another into silence. But that silence turned into an echo over time. A few years after he left football, young stars began to speak on his behalf. "My inspiration is Ronaldo. He showed us that you can walk a path that not everyone talks about. Most of what they won wasn't medals, it was resistance. Documentaries have been made, interviews were conducted, and one day at a special ceremony organized by UEFA, he was invited as the guest of honor of the night. The hall gave a standing ovation as he walked under the lights. There was a silence on the stage for the first time during the ceremony. The presenter asked, "You have been silent all this time. Why?" Ronaldo replied, "Because I never expected everyone to love me. I just hoped that those who understood me would realize it one day, and at that moment, a legend earned the respect he deserved, albeit late. Maybe the awards weren't given out on time. Maybe some of the headlines were biased. But the truth would never stay hidden forever." Cristiano Ronaldo, despite being decried for years, he was remembered as football's lone walking but shining star from the highest. Some applause is delayed, but what comes after silence becomes much more meaningful.